After leaving the mountain, Jesus and the disciples made their way through Galilee, and he did not want anyone to know because he was instructing his disciples. He was telling them, "The Son of Man will be delivered into the hands of men. They will put him to death. And 3 days after he's been put to death, he will rise again." But they didn't understand what he said and were afraid to ask him. They came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you arguing about on the road?" They said nothing, because they'd been arguing which of them was the greatest. So he sat down, called the 12, and said, "If anyone wants to be first, he must make himself last of all and servant of all." He then took a little child, set the child in front of them, put his arms round him, and said to them, "Anyone who welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. And anyone who welcomes me welcomes not me, but the one who sent me."
Jesus wants to take his disciples away from the hurly-burly, from the crowds. And he just wants time with them, doesn't he, just to tell them a few things that they need to know, particularly helping them to accept that his coming passion and the resurrection will happen.
Yes, it's a whole teaching session that Jesus has got the disciples on, and Mark has grouped this quite deliberately, I think, because we'll see that in a number of passages around these chapters. Jesus is teaching his disciples. He wants them to learn what he knows is going to be a very difficult lesson for them.
Well, a little bit hard for them to understand and comprehend, I would think.
Yeah.
After all, this man is healing people who are incapacitated, who are sick, and he's making them well. And how could all this good suffer so much pain?
Yes, they have a lot to learn about the sacrifice nature of Jesus' mission, and that becomes very clear when they are concerned about their own position in the group. If they really knew what it meant to be in the leadership role, they'd run a mile. And that's what Jesus is patiently trying to draw them towards that understanding. Interesting, the use of the word "the way," while they were on the way, and that's the name that became the title of the followers of Jesus, the way, before they were known as Christians.
Is that right?
And so here Mark is saying that the whole following of Jesus it is a constantly learning journey. That along the way we are constantly called to learn more, to deepen our understanding.
And not just the disciples, it's all of us too, even 2,000 years later, still trying to walk that same journey, that same way.
And which of you wants to be the greatest? Well, that little child that Jesus brings into their midst is a beautiful image, a wonderful visual aid for all of us. The child is so trusting, so aware of the care that's around them. And Jesus wants us to trust God in that same way, even though we don't understand completely what he's calling us to do.
Yes, and the child too, the dependence and the independence of a young child. You're trying to develop the independence, and yet there's still a dependence on others, and we depend on each other.
And being the least is to be at the beck and call of everyone else.
Yes.
The last in the line is often the one who has to pick up the pieces, is called to do this and to do that. You know, the youngest in the group. It's your turn. No, I did it last time. No, don't argue. It's still your turn. So Jesus is saying, Jesus is saying to us, If you want to be the leader, then just look at what happens when you're last in line, because that's where I am, and that's where you must be too.
Yes, yes. Walking with people and helping them.
And you learn, when you're last in line, that it's not the worst place to be at all. It's a place of great happiness, support and fulfilment.
Yes. I think too there's a lesson in Jesus' patience. He gives them the same lesson time and time and time again, and we need that patience too.